alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Alwasi TV for another amazing podcast tonight. I'm Brother Redwan, by the way. So tonight we're joined by an amazing human being who I'm very excited to speak to, and I've been looking forward to speak to you for quite a while. We've got Brother Wesam. Brother Wesam, please introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Redwan. It's my honor to be here, my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to spend time with us tonight and to run through a few life lessons that we'd like to share with our community.
Inshallah.
If you want to just kick off with just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and your involvement in the community. I know we've had a couple of conversations beforehand, so we can kick off with that, please.
Starting off with the hardest question first.
The hardest.
Yeah, look, nothing too special. My name's obviously Wesam. 30 years old. And in terms of involvement in the community, I've been pretty much in this same community for my whole life, which is 30
years. Mashallah.
And yeah, look, we've always been, as a family, involved in community matters from a very young age. Not just community, I would say, but even like politics overseas and what's going on all around the world. We're always, very active in that sense. That comes obviously from my father. And so, yeah, from a very young age, I wasn't someone who was sheltered from the community or not really aware of what's going on. I was always involved, and I was always tagging along with my father wherever he goes, and whether it's a protest or listening to the news or hearing what's going on. I was always very interested in that from a very young age. And yeah, it brings us to today.
Awesome. Really good. I think, as we spoke off air a couple of times before, I see you, I've seen quite a few of your lectures in and around the centers around here. And if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to Brother Wesam yet, do definitely check him out online or check him out in person. It's definitely an enlightening experience for sure. And as we spoke about before, it's I see you as, I think, naturally speaking. I don't know if it's a deliberate thing for yourself or if it's just your natural navigation to it, but I do see you as more of a youth-focused, youth issues-focused individual, youth issues-focused speaker. And I'd just like to explore that a little bit about you with regards to youth affairs, generally speaking. How are you? What's drawn you towards that? Is it a deliberate sort of thing, or is it just something you've naturally moved your way into?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Like, it's not one way or the other, but when you've grown up in the community, you've grown up in this society, in this culture, your whole life, and you've seen what goes on and how different people take different paths because of certain things and environmental factors or family factors and whatnot. And you're given that big responsibility, which is a very big responsibility, to deliver lectures or speeches or whatever you may call it. You feel that responsibility. You feel like you do know these people, and on a personal level, who you're talking to. I feel like it's different where you've come from abroad, you've studied, your whole life somewhere else, and you come and you have all this preconceived ideas that you want to just deliver, regardless of who your audience is. I think knowing your audience, for me, is the toughest thing. Before I write any lecture or whatnot, I just sit down and just think, who are my audience? What do they go through? What would resonate with them? How can I deliver this message in a way that they will understand it and they will get it? And I think as I was growing up, I don't necessarily deviate from the path, which I guess is thanks to my upbringing and, my environment and the family and whatnot. And as I was growing up, when I would see people who would deviate, I feel like as I was less mature and I wouldn't understand exactly what's going on, I would maybe perhaps look down on those people. Look at that person, he's doing the wrong thing. He knows he shouldn't be doing that. And then you just have this naturally, even though it was just within myself, like me talking to myself, or thoughts that I would have.
The natural source.
But as I would grow up, as I grew up, and I realized, look, these people, the only reason they were in this situation is just because their environment was different. And even if you go to a broader context, when you look at, people who are non-Muslims and people who are of different faiths or have different ideologies, if you go down to it, to the very basic of it, maybe these people, you're lucky to be in this situation where you were raised in a certain way, where you were fed this information, where you were disciplined a certain way for you to come to this result. Whereas other people, they were just, dealt a different hand. They had different situations, different environment growing up. And so I felt as I was growing up, I was judging people less and less and understanding that, it's not necessarily their fault. And there's always a way for people to turn back and go back, that to never write off people that just because they've deviated, they've gone a certain way, they've done certain things, to never just write them off and say, no, look, these people are, they're too far gone, and just to give up on them. And that's where I think trying to reach out to those people and talking about topics of repentance and God's mercy are topics that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah,
especially
I do see that a lot in your speeches and talks with the people. It's almost intimate in its nature, and I think how much preparation do you go through for each individual presentation, because it looks very meticulously prepared and quite sort of individual. It's as if you're talking to the individual themselves in a private session. In some cases, it's quite cool.
So what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah,
it's actually, I think a lot of people will be surprised, but it's actually a lot of work. It's a lot of time. For example, Muharram lectures, I think at least 2 months before, all my spare time, because I'm also working full time, so all my spare time is in my office, my home office. Like even family time is put to a bare minimum. Like even any commitments, any other thing is set aside, because you have these 10 nights, for example, in Muharram, where you have the attention, you feel the burden of the responsibility.
Yeah.
Like it's really massive. Like you have these 10 nights where you have people, from all walks of life, regardless of, how religious, not religious, where they've been this past year. The love of Imam Hussein is going to bring them. And when they're there as you're delivering a lecture, they've given you their mind. And you have that responsibility to feed them with not only something that they can relate to, something that they can understand, but something that they'll benefit from.
Yeah.
Something that, they're going to walk away maybe from these 10 nights and you'll never see them again. Or you'll see them next year, hopefully.
Or you make a big enough impact that will change the trajectory.
Exactly. And you can make them, those who start to attend, more and more. So that impression and what you deliver and what you give to them is going to have that impact on them.
Yeah.
And you can change the trajectory of someone's life. And it's the same regardless whether it's Muharram or not Muharram. It is a big responsibility.
Because there's no room for error, right? There's no room for you've got to get both factually spot on, and you've also got to get the impact right as well with it.
And I think one of the hardest things with the lecture itself is choosing the topic.
Oh yes,
is actually just sitting down and be like, what topic am I going to talk about? In Muharram, I think I had 13 or 14, probably around 20 lectures, and just choosing 20 different topics to talk about. And you don't want to be repetitive. And even if there are topics that you should repeat, you should constantly talk about. And I'll have, parents come up to me and like, please talk about this. Please talk about Salah. And all right, okay.
Yeah.
But if you just deliver a full lecture, 40, 30 minutes just about Salah, I feel like sometimes that is not the best way. So what I do is I'll incorporate it throughout the lectures. I'll have my own topics, new topics that I want to discuss. But in each night, I'll include, a story here or hadith there that mentions Salah or being good to your parents, just to not have it repetitive and just not for them to feel like, they're getting the information. You're delivering the information in a different way.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I want to flesh out a little bit more around that community engagement aspect of it, with particularly around, you mentioned there with the parents coming up to you and asking you for certain topics to be spoken about in particular lectures or included in a certain thing. And sometimes you don't get a lot of lead time.
Yeah.
Or a lot of notice before you're up there and talking about it and stuff like that. But how important is that to you to have that community engagement and that really finger on the pulse of what is relevant to the community today.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. And even as I'm getting older and I'm in a different stage of life, maybe I'm more, I'm at more of a disconnect from the youth and the youth issues and what's going on. So I always, before every Muharram, like I would call those younger people that I know, whether they're my cousins,
I see you around the mosque. There's always
family or people around the mosque. Look, tell me what's the big issue, what's going on, what's happening. And then I'd find that, I had these 10 lectures in my mind, all these 10 topics that I've got down that I'm ready to speak about. All of a sudden, I'm, you know what, I have to change all of these. I have, 10 other ideas, 10 other topics that are more pressing today, in today's day and age. Look, there are issues that are general, that everyone knows about, that are in the news, that are, that have to deal with the general population. And there are more specific ones where you have to investigate, you have to ask, you have to have that engagement with the community to know what they need from you.
Yeah.
And I think that I get that from, I was a listener for so long. I was always listening to lectures. And whenever I would hear a lecture, and I feel like, look, you're giving us historical facts.
Yeah.
You're repeating these historical facts. Please, and I'm literally there, just please link it to something.
Yeah.
Something that's happening today, something that's that has to do with our social setting, family, anything like that.
Yeah.
And you'd feel so disappointed when, all you get is a repeat of the historical facts, which are very important.
Yeah.
It's very important to know, but you can always link it because history always repeats itself.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think the unique thing with you that I find in some cases is that, a lot of people when they speak, and a lot of them are the respected scholars and stuff, they're really amazing, really powerful sort of messages. But a lot of them are focused, and it's rightfully so, focused on sort of the lessons learned from the negatives. And with us being Shia, we do focus a lot on Imam Hussein and on the Masa'ib and things like that. But I think you present it in a way from a youth viewpoint. They don't necessarily want to hear a negative or a negative connotation around the discussion. You bring a positive spin to it. What can I learn from it? So you're not imparting knowledge on them. Like I remember we were listening to you one day, we were having a conversation around wudu and the aspects of that and so on. And so you're imparting knowledge, like solid stuff that people can take away and implement day to day and really change what they're doing daily to improve themselves as Muslims. But you also present it in a way that you walk out of the room energized and feeling empowered. And I think that's, I don't know if that's a deliberate change, because I think that's, from what I've seen, unique to you in that regard, in that you combine those two aspects of it. But is that a deliberate thing by you, or you've seen, in the past, a lot of historical information, which is amazingly powerful and important, but then you wanted to give it a more intimate, positive spin that would apply to youth today?
Yeah. I think when you look at our Holy Prophet, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, he was always someone like that. He was always motivating people. Even in the hardest of times, the toughest of times, they've just been defeated in war. Whenever they were running in a difficult situation, he would always motivate people. Make sure that they're energized, that they don't feel down.
Well, that's when you need it the most.
Exactly, because especially during the start of the message of Islam, Rasulullah he'll send a message to the king of Persia, and then the king will get the message. He'll open it. He'll read that it says Min Muhammad ibn Abdullah ila Malik, and his name. And then he would say, look, why has he put Min Muhammad before he put my name? He put his name before my name. So he would rip up the letter, put some dirt in the envelope, and send it back with the messenger. So Rasulullah is there, our Holy Prophet. He's with his companions, and this messenger comes and says, look, I've come back with the letter that you've sent. He opens it, it's ripped, there's dirt with it, and then everyone is just feeling down, feeling, kind of defeated.
Yeah.
And then Rasulullah says to them, no. He says, just like he's ripped up this letter, you will be ripping up his kingdom. And just like he's put some dirt on this letter, you will one day own that dirt. and own that land, which is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
And that's why Rasulullah is referred to as al-Bashir al-Nadir. So he's the warner, but he's also the one that gives glad tidings.
Yeah.
He was the mercy to mankind. So when you look at Rasulullah and you truly understand that Rasulullah came with this mercy and rahmah and the way that he deals with people and how he taught people, it's not just constantly fear. I think it's the same as raising your children. It's fear and
it works to a certain extent, and then it no longer has an effect.
Exactly, but once you're not there, what happens?
Yep.
I think that's the same thing. Is that look, people need to understand that there's always a way back.
Yeah.
If you're always scaring them, and that's something that Shaitan does too. Shaitan wants people to give up and lose hope and just look, I'm already too far gone. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look, I am the Tawwab, I am the most forgiving, I'm always accepting repentance. So focusing on that aspect in any topic that we talk about, always giving people that bit of hope that there's always a way back. There's always because no one's perfect. At the end of the day, me being the first person and anyone, we're all committing sins and we're doing the wrong things to certain extents. So without having that sense of hope that we are going to be included in Allah's mercy, there is just no way for us to turn back to Allah.
Yeah, subhanAllah. That's powerful words there. And that's a really good message, I think, to convey there that, there's always hope. There's a tomorrow, there's always hope. MashaAllah. I wanted to explore a little bit as well because as you said, you do work full time.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got your religious commitments and our community commitments, which we're grateful for. But I'd like to explore a little bit around balancing that, full-time work and balancing your work persona as a human being at work, as a professional, with the religious side and aspects of it. I think we had a long time ago a conversation with a few friends of mine, and we were talking about the difference between ambition and greed.
Yep.
Right. And obviously, none of us are scholars. We the blind leading the blind. It was a great conversation. We got nowhere. Yeah. But in general, I mean, obviously, I came back to my Sayyid and had that conversation there. But around when you get to a certain level, or a certain situation, or a certain pay grade, or whatever the circumstance is, and when do you, from a religious standpoint, do you balance out? Am I right now really ambitious in my career and wanting to move up, or is it just simply greed that's driving me? How do you strike that balance within you?
Look, having the ambition is very important. Even as a Muslim, even the religion of Islam encourages us to be ambitious, to work hard, to achieve great things in this life. And if you're earning a halal income, you have a career, and you want to move up, there is no harm in that. I want to get promoted. I want to work harder. I want to earn more. I think the question comes is, look, I have enough. I'm earning enough. Alhamdulillah. There's a position that's come up for promotion, and I'm up for that position. I can go for it. If I do take that position, is it going to harm my deen in any way? Is it going to give me less time to focus on my religion? Or is there going to be a lot of travel involved? And because of that, I'm not going to have enough time for my family. I'm not going to have enough time to raise my children. So it's all those other questions which I feel like are at an individual level. It's not like a blanket rule.
Yeah.
Every individual needs to assess that, okay, there's more money. It's not haram to earn more money, especially it's in halal and you're in your career and you have aspirations and you want progression. But it's at what cost? At what cost is it going to come? Okay, more money, but is there any cost to religion, to family? If there is, then I shouldn't take that.
Yeah.
If there isn't, if it's just a bit more responsibility at work, there's not necessarily more travel, whatever it may be, then we should go for that. I think as Muslims, we need that. We need strong Muslims in powerful positions, regardless of where it is. We need Muslims that truly represent and portray what a Muslim can do and achieve.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very, very true. How do you balance that for yourself personally around time? We are greedy. We love your time. and we love to watch you and listen to you always. And the more we get, the better. But for you, as a professional, as a family man, and as a speaker and as a member of our community, how do you balance that time? What sort of things go into that decision making process around balancing that time, particularly around family and social life?
Yeah.
I mean, you need some downtime as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Look, it's not easy. It's very hard. I think it comes down to priorities. You prioritize your life in a certain way, and also about making time. Because I believe that probably 90% of the time when people say, I have no time, it's not that you had no time, it's that you didn't make the time.
Yeah.
It's all about planning. Like you'll find someone that you haven't spoken to in 2-3 weeks, for example. Like, oh, sorry, I just didn't have time to give you a call. Really? Like you didn't have 5 minutes to pick up the phone and say,
in
hello,
the car,
how are you? Or in the car, or a text message, or
Bluetooth,
whatever.
obviously. Drive safely, people.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, oh, we don't have time. No, we do have time.
Yeah.
You can go to your job, come back home, spend an hour with your family, spend an hour reading, not even an hour, 30 minutes, studying about your deen, about your religion. 30 minutes a day, imagine that, 7 days a week, 3.5 hours of study you've got in. So, and everyone has things at their own pace. Like there's no one timeline that everyone does things. Obviously, work is important. You need to earn an income for your family.
Absolutely.
You need to spend time with your children. Raising them is, a very big responsibility, especially in this day and age. Every day, every month, year, things are getting harder. There's a new wave of corruption after the other. So you have to be really involved with them, with your partner, with your husband or your wife. And then also you have that obligation to have tafaqqah bid-deen, to learn something about your religion. And doesn't mean that, to be a scholar or to be, to delve into hawza, full time and whatnot, but just something like learning one new thing.
Or even time out to self-reflect.
Read
what
a bit
have I
of
done
Quran.
today?
Exactly. That's very important. Self-reflection is something that's extremely important, that when you delve into the concept of arfan, it's one of the first things that you learn. Like you literally get a spreadsheet where you reflect on your day. Did I wake up for Salat al-Fajr? Did I do Salat al-Layl? Did I do this? Did I have greed today? Literally. And you'll sit there writing and reflecting, because that's the only way that you can actually be aware of your actions, because it's so easy to dismiss things and move on. But
yeah, that's powerful. And I think you haven't always had it easy either. I mean, people may think some of the speakers out there are, they've had all of the great opportunities to to make it into where they are, and I've had it rough and stuff like that. But you haven't. You've had a bit of a rough stretch as well, right? And it's a bit of a sensitive topic, but I am referring to your brother. And did you want to just run through a bit about that?
Yeah. So last year in March, I did lose my brother. He's my younger brother, so there's like a 7-year age gap between us. So it's more than just like a brother to brother relationship. It's you feel like you kind of helped raise him, and you're always with him, taking him to school, driving him around. And yeah, that was a very hard day, the hardest day of my life. And it truly changed my view on life. Truly, like every morning I wake up, I think about him. At night, I remember him. So you're constantly thinking about this world and how insignificant it is. And I felt like I just detached from materialism. I don't want to say like I'm a monk or anything like that, but it's everything now is in perspective. Like losing a materialistic thing or losing a bit of money here and there. It's all, I feel like, does not affect me, or probably not even as much, if at all. So you view the world in a different perspective, through a different lens. You understand, how insignificant this life is. And when that happened, I was in deep reflection, because I've always been studying religion, reading on my own, not officially. I remember sitting outside at night and just thinking, what do I want to do with my life? where I want to focus all my energy on. That's the only thing I can think of. That religion, helping people turn back to Allah Azza wa Jalla, and teaching them about our religion. And I've always wanted to continue studies officially because it is different. You need to study it within certain guidelines.
Mm.
And I've contemplated going overseas, but when you have a career and children, family, and with everything that was going on, that wasn't possible. So I decided to commence online studies, Hausa studies. On that day, actually, like that night, I was just sitting there contemplating. So it's a very tough thing. Grief is something that I would always hear about, read about, or see other people going through. But you never understand what it is. As time goes on, it's never easier.
Mm.
It's just that you learn to manage your feelings and emotions and to handle things. But some days are harder than others. Some days you're okay, you're managing, but it's a lifelong process. Like, this is something that changes your life forever.
Yeah.
And you need to learn to deal with it. And for me personally, just Muharram itself, which was probably like 3 months after my brother passed away, and I was asked to give lectures in the Muharram. So I just committed myself just to that. That was my pure focus, was on those lectures and preparing them. And through Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and that tragedy that occurred, that is what gives us strength, because you hear and you see and you read what happened to the Imam, the grandson of our Holy Prophet, and how he was martyred in such a way. That gives us strength. And not only that, but you see other people around the world who, mothers who lose, all their children, people who lose their entire families.
Mm.
And through the story of Imam Hussein, through the tragedy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the sabr and the patience of Lady Zainab, how that gives them strength, how that gives them patience and the ability to live on and continue in the same path that they are in, even though they're in much more difficult times and places than us. So that gave me a lot of strength, focusing my energy on that religion and religious studies and whatnot. That gave me a bit of a purpose to continue and to be strong. And also, I'm the eldest in my family, so I've always had that feeling of being the responsible person. My father would travel a lot overseas, so I was always, given responsibility at a very young age. As a teenager, I'd be kind of the man of the house, and taking care of everyone. So I've always had that sense of responsibility. Now that it felt 10 times more, a lot more things to be on the lookout for, a lot more things that you're carrying.
Yeah. And I think, thank you for sharing that. I think it's an amazing story. And I think I take a lot away from, because there are a lot of different ways that could have went. I mean, for general other people. And I think for you, there was never any doubt where it took you, and it solidified you a lot more in the religious path. And that speaks a lot to your father and your upbringing, and the amazing work they've done with you and your family and stuff. I appreciate that. With regards to raising children, and of course, with you raising your own, and you've got your little brothers and your other family, your siblings, etc. Within your family, how do you deal with the modern day? I'm moving on very quickly because it's gotten emotional. You hit me right in the chest with that one, and I just wanted to, you're an amazing person. I have a lot of respect for you. And I think, I think that story being shared is going to make a lot of lives change, and a lot of people really look and sort of reflect deep within them, as I've just done, with trying to understand how to empathize with people and look into circumstances and situations that people go through.
That's the thing. That's probably another thing that it's taught me is you never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
to never hold a grudge on anyone, because you don't know, like, are you going to see that person again? Are you going to see that person again? Just to be a lot more sensitive to people's emotions and their feelings and what they're going through, because you truly never know. Like, I would go to work and people would be laughing, and not my work colleagues, but other people that I deal with, and they wouldn't know what's going on. So you don't want to bring that thing up, but you learn to put up with it, deal with it, because you're like, look, you can't expect everyone to know what you're going through, because you kind of feel that, like, you expect, like, when you're in that place, you expect people to know, look, I'm going through this very difficult thing. You should, like, you expect people to know, but people don't. The reality is people don't. People don't know what you're going through, and we don't know what other people are going through. And so to always be kind and to, not hold grudges against people, and to be nice and respect people. That's another thing that I'm actively on the lookout for, actively doing.
Yeah, I see that. I see that everywhere. Particularly after a majlis, or over a barbecue or something. You've always got time for everyone, the littlest kid to the eldest gentleman in the room. You've always got time, and you're always patient and generous with your time with them. And I think that's it's an amazing thing, an amazing quality, and we're grateful as a community. We're grateful to have you. Definitely.
Let's move on to technology and children.
Yeah, let's move on to so generally speaking, I mean, we're trying to move on to a topic. So just for everyone's, we're trying to move on to the topic of social media, technology, mobile phone usage, etc. with youth, because we really haven't had the training, right?
Yeah.
As parents and as
it was very different.
I mean, when we were growing up, it's sort of the bully was physically there. Right? In the first instance, you'd walk up to your parents, you've got some sort of bruise on your body, and say, "Hey, Dad, this person here physically." Yeah.
And you go home and that's it. And like, it's over. You'll wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, whereas now it's with this whole social media and online thing, with just a ocean of, filters, and who knows who said what and how, and this person sent an email and that emoji never matched that emoji, and you've got different sort of cyber bullying stuff going on. You've got exposure to things. Like, I remember during COVID, right? We had TikTok come out. Who knew what that was? Yeah. Right?
It's taking the world by storm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then one day I looked at it and I found out what it was, and it was banned out of the house, right? Completely. I mean, but it took me a couple of weeks to get on top of that. And like, God knows what else. Yeah. It's like, we haven't had any training on that. Like, as a parent, we've got this, absolute avalanche of technological advancement. The entire world, AI algorithms. You've got all of these things. You're targeting, the audience, and the technology is doing what the technology is designed to do. You can't judge the technology on it. That's sort of. But as a parent, how do you make that call? Where do you make the decision? When do you give a child a mobile phone? You need to contact them if they're out of the house. And the other side of the equation is, if you don't, they fall behind technologically. They're behind the 8 ball. Suddenly. Right?
It is probably one of the biggest challenges as a parent, because before you become a parent and you see all these children on their screens, like, look, if I'm a parent, my children will never have a screen. Yeah. I'm probably guilty of saying that. But it is extremely important. And I've seen it firsthand where, with my son growing up, he was never attached to a screen. Yeah. Like, he always had toys and painting and colors, and he would go outside, and I was impressed. I was like, look, even though the TV is there sometimes, or we open it for him, he's not really like that into it, that attached. But as he grew older, that stuff just wasn't enough for him anymore, and he wants the screen. And if you look at studies, I read a recent study where these cartoons that they show children, if you actually pay attention, you'll find that the scene changes every 3 seconds. So I literally sat there and I'm like, 1, 2, 3, and they changed every 3 seconds. Like, they changing it to keep them engaged, to keep them attached. It's just giving them that, just feeding them that, what they want, what they need to keep them engaged. And you find that studies show that really affects children. Like, I see it firsthand, the more attached to the screen they are, the more likely they are to lose their temper, not be able to control their emotions. And not only does it cause all these emotional things, it also physically, you know, I've heard some children that I know firsthand, you get the screen time with the iPads.
Yeah.
Their average weekly screen time is 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day.
Wow.
So they go to school. I'm like, look, how does this even happen? How is this possible? You go to school, you come back, 4:30. How do you have 10 hours a day to be on this screen? And it is really important for us as parents to be vigilant. Yes, we can't completely block them out from technology. As you said, technology is the way of the future, and it's very important for them to be into it. But I think being extremely vigilant, being very strict, and strict does not mean, you're there yelling at your children or you're harsh with them. No. Giving them screen time. Okay, you get screen time. Because I've seen it with my son now. Look, he'll play with his toys, and look, he has too much toys. That's another problem. Too much of anything is bad. They get bored of it. He's done some coloring here, whatnot. He's ridden his bike for half an hour. He's like, Dad, this is the challenge that I have now.
Yeah.
Baba, I'm still bored. Baba, I'm so bored. Wherever we go, I'll take him out. I've done 6 activities today. Baba, but I'm still bored. I was like, oh, okay, look, you can watch 30 minutes, of your favorite cartoon, which, I already know what he's going to watch and make sure that it's okay for him to watch. But you have to have that. Look, you've got 30 minutes. It can't just be open. It can't just be, I think a lot of parents, it's for them, it's the easier way out, especially with younger children. And I'm not talking about teenagers. That's a different story. But with your younger children, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, some parents are really tired. Look, fair enough. They're really tired.
Yeah.
They've gone to work. The mothers are at home. They're cooking, they're cleaning all day. And they just don't have the energy to spend that time and deal with the, children crying or being upset. So look, just given, I feel like some parents are actually afraid of their little children. Like their children are in control, in power.
Yeah.
And I've heard of this firsthand. Literally, they pick them up from school. They've bought them a toy every day.
Wow.
And if they don't, they're afraid of what's going to happen.
There'd be a price to pay.
So exactly. And that is actually detrimental to that child growing up.
Yeah.
That's going to destroy his personality. Having that, being firm, especially as a father, I feel like being firm, being strict. That's what, studies found that, children who are living with single parents, if they were just with their mother, the percentage of them that ended up in prisons was so much higher. It was 4 or 5 times higher from memory. It's because you don't have that strict, rules. You teach them to be disciplined. And it's for example, your son has homework or your daughter has homework and she hasn't done it. It's due tomorrow. She's had maybe, or an assignment that she's had a couple of days to do.
Yeah.
And, not at night, it's time for bedtime. But I've got this homework that I haven't done. With the mother, 9 times out of 10, she'll be like, all right, look, I'm going to give you another half an hour. Quickly do your homework so you can go in the morning. And with the father, most of the times, the father will be like, look, too bad. How many days have you had? You've had 5 days. Too bad. You're going to go to sleep. You're going to go tomorrow without your homework. And so that teaches them that, look, yes, I can't just get away with everything in life, and teaches us discipline.
Yeah.
And with technology and going back to social media, and now it's even with the children, to the teenagers, to even the adults, it's literally everyone's on their phone scrolling. As I said, we have to be vigilant, and there are a lot of ways to do that. We need to be educated. So you can monitor your children's devices, you can set limits, you can set restrictions, you can lock them out from it remotely. You can literally be here and they can be at home and you can remotely lock them out. So I feel like, parents need to learn these things. They need to be aware of them. A lot of parents are probably not as technologically savvy, or they are unaware of this, but you have to keep up with the times as technology. And it's not just technology, it's what they are fed. If you leave your child alone for an hour on YouTube, for example, YouTube Kids, you've opened something that you're happy for them to watch, but if they're alone, the next video here, and this is boring, or the ads or whatnot, and you'll be surprised with the things and the corruption that they try to feed to our children.
I remember the Prime thing was an example. The drink.
Yeah.
That went absolutely insane in the schools.
Yeah.
Everyone was looking for that.
They were
drink.
dealing them, or reselling them and making profits.
It was like an absolute mass hysteria over this energy drink, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, just get a Gatorade, man. What's this? And you finally get your hands on it, you taste it, tastes just like Gatorade. Like, dude, why do you...
That's the influence of marketing, social media.
And it's kind of like, it can be used for good, definitely. But there's a massive downside.
Very big risks there,
because it's a mass thing. So and we know children, they like to, my friend has this, I want that. My friend does this, I want to be able to do it. And
as parents, you might feel guilty.
That's right. But the thing is, you're dealing with this thing that is an essentially caffeinated drink in that regard, and other products. I mean, I don't want to get too specific about just one particular product, but it's not designed for kids. But the kids are the ones that are driving it, and it was marketed in a certain way that really hammered in the message to my kids, at least. I'm not sure generally speaking, but.
And so that's hard. That's hard for us to really control.
Yeah,
I think if you look back at from an Islamic point of view, Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib, he has a very beautiful narration which my father lived by, and I also live by and follow, and a lot of people do and should live by that when it comes to raising children. It's 3 stages, he says. Leave them for 7, teach them for 7, discipline them for 7, and befriend them for 7. So 21 years. Now, leave them for 7 does not literally mean you leave them to do whatever. But it means you can't discipline them really in the way that you would, or teach them, because from 0 till the age of 7, their brains aren't even ready to be disciplined or to understand repercussions and what's happening. They're still developing. But you have that first 7 years where you try and feed them the right information. You're teaching them certain things that they can understand. I found myself, dealing with a 4-year-old that I have to talk about things that, I'm just surprised. Like, why are you even asking me these questions? I wouldn't have asked those questions probably if I was 10 back in my day. But things are changing. They're more aware. You feel like there's less, I don't know if you want to call it innocence, but they're more aware of things, and they want to ask and they want to get to know things. So the first 7 years, that's your responsibility. The next 7 years is teaching, is discipline, is being firm, but fair. Not harsh, not, hurting their feelings or using, violence, verbal or physical, anything like that. But for their, inside you, it's for their own benefit. They might not know that. They might hate you for 7 years, but that is a massive responsibility for us as parents. It's
critical.
You need to teach them, because you're protecting them. From not only from what's happening and what's going to happen in this life, but for the next life. So you need to protect yourself and your family. So, and then 7 years. So by the age of 14 to 21, you become kind of like their friend. You give them trust. You ask for their advice about certain things. You give them that sense that they're mature, that they're important, that they have this value that they can add. And then by the age of 21, as a parent, if you've done all these things, you've done your responsibility. And most of the times, if you've done all these things correctly, then your child is going to end up, on the right path. If not,
it's all about building those lifelong habits and solidifying them. Because I think, as you said, the developmental mind can't absorb that as a pattern, a habit, up until I reckon about 7. And then between 7 and 14, 15, it's where they get used to Salah, the importance of Salah. And so suddenly when they're older, it's no longer, I have to get up to pray now.
It's a way of life.
It's a part of what they do. It's within them. It's instilled in them.
And that first 7 years, you can't really enforce prayer on them, but you can take them with you to the mosque. They can be attached. You can give them their own prayer mat and their own little Quran and whatever. And so when they see you praying, they feel, this is something that I can be a part of. You'll find that they just want to be, especially, sons with their fathers, like they always just want to copy and imitate and hang out and be with them. So that's where we hold the responsibility, where, you've become a parent, all of a sudden now you're a role model. So, you feel the pressure. Look, even if you don't want to necessarily, you want to do certain things, you have those eyes watching you. You're a role model for that person. For what word you say, how you speak, the actions that you do in the house, outside of the house, you're a role model whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. And even with as an older sibling, I see that with my kids. You know, it's what you do as an older sibling.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
So I've gotten away with everything. But with the older ones, it's sort of like what you do, they will do.
Exactly. And the parents put pressure on you. Yeah. You have to be good.
And it's particularly with this new technology stuff, it's half the stuff my younger learned how to use came from the older, my son.
Yeah.
And you know, he's quite technically savvy and he's aware of everything, and it's kind of like, you know, getting them to a place where if they are telling or teaching other people what or how to use the technology or what to use the technology, they themselves will self-discipline to ensure they're not, you know, exposing them to anything that's.
I think teaching is the best way of also learning yourself.
And I think that's important. I mean, some of the stuff they surprised me. I mean, you're very right. They're way aware. They are aware of everything. There's things that we
existential like things about, you know, our existence and the world and why our things are certain.
And the questions you get,
like very deep, and I'm like,
bro, go ask a sheikh, please. Don't ask me. Because what don't you know? I'm like, dude, just ask a sayyid or a sheikh.
And I feel like a lot of times, even when you're disciplining your children, when they're always asking for the reason, but why? Like, because I said so. I think that's a good enough reason. It should be a good enough reason. Look, it's important. It's very nice and it's very important that they're asking these questions and they want to know and they're learning and that's what they're developing. But at the same time, sometimes they need to understand that, you know, as a father or as a parent, as a mother, they know best. They know what's best for you, and they might not feel comfortable, or they might not feel that, you know, this child is ready to learn exactly why they can't do this thing, but because we said so, that should be good enough.
I think that's it, and that's the other aspect of social media that I've noticed over the years has changed, particularly with the introduction of. I mean, I'm old enough to have seen the introduction of the internet. Particularly into Australian schools and stuff like that. And I've always noticed an increase every year in this entitlement to justice. Like, are you being just with me? Why? I mean, I have the ability to question, and I want a sense of justice in this discussion. I want fair thing, but why that? And then the scenario in my mind around, yes, it's to discipline and to, you know, saying that it's just because I said so is enough is one positive aspect of it. But the other side of the equation is it challenges us as parents to self-improve, because you're going to get asked those questions. You know, why do we make wudu? It doesn't clean anything. Don't use soap. What's the point of it? And so as a parent, you know, I grew up just doing it, and then you get asked that question. You go away and do that research, and suddenly what happens? Your Allah's given you a gift. Out of that scenario.
Now you're learning because of their questions.
That's right. And so you have to grow with them.
Exactly.
And, you know, grow your education and become more aware of what you're doing but there's a line there. And I found it always very difficult, which is why it's, religiously speaking, for me, it's very difficult for me to speak on things in my household to do with, you know, fiqh and religious rulings and stuff like that, because I always worry that, what if I'm wrong? What if I've read something and interpreted it incorrectly? Now, how do I balance that as a parent? Or do I just refer them to a scholar that they? And again,
look, this is a very important question. Absolutely, because there are a lot of stories that we're hearing where the son or the daughter, they will go and do their own research, or they'll be exposed to certain things and questions, or not even Islamically. Like they'll be exposed to all these atheism and whatnot, and doubt, building doubt about religion, and then they'll come built with all these information and these theories and these questions that someone's designed to try and convince them of this certain thing, and then they'll come to their parents who aren't necessarily as educated Islamically. And they'll begin having a debate. And then the parents will like, oh, look, we don't know the answer to this. We don't know the answer to this. And then the child will feel like, oh, look, I've beaten them in this debate. And what I believe in is right, because my parents, who are my role models and whatnot, they don't know the answers to this. And so that's why it's very important as parents to be aware, but at the same time, no parent or not all parents are going to be, be able to address all these things and misconceptions and these falsehoods that are out there. So
Yeah.
it's very important to know someone at least that you can refer them to, that you can get involved very early on.
Yeah.
Because the longer that you keep that, the more that they're going to deviate.
Well, that goes back to your 7 years, right?
Exactly.
And the involvement in the community,
Yeah.
and involvement in a center or a mosque,
and also them feeling comfortable approaching you. That's because maybe you're lucky that they even come to you with these misconceptions. Maybe they just deviate and they go a different path. And we've seen it happen time and time again. People losing their faith or changing into different faiths because this is empty. This is a container, and if you haven't filled it with the right information, then someone else is going to come and fill it with the wrong information and be like, they have nothing to compare it to. I had my first debate, Islamic debate, when I was probably 11 years old. I was in year 5. I was going to school, Islamic school, not a Shia school. Anyway, and my desk would be right next to the desk of the teacher. And he was a nice teacher, and we would always have these debates, and he would say something to me, and I would go home and I'll tell my dad, and my dad will give me some information and this verse from the Quran, and I'll be waiting excited all day until the next day. Like I come and look, I give him the hadith that I have or the ayah that I have and the argument or the answer to his question. And so from a very early age, if you build that sense of, look, you're literally equipping them with this weapon that they can defend themselves with. Yeah. If you build that information, if you teach them, look, for example, if I can't teach my son, then there are places that I can take them to. There are, after school lessons, there are lectures, majalis, take them to the mosque, take them to the Hassaniyya.
I think, even more powerful than that. And you take advantage of this a lot. And this is the standout, as I mentioned before, the standout thing for me was that your time after the majlis.
Yeah.
And those little side conversations with people individually or small groups, that is immensely powerful.
Yeah.
Huge difference to the lives of people, because it gives them an environment where they're comfortable talking about things where they may not be comfortable
in public or in front of
raising
everyone else.
a hand in front of everyone and asking a question and stuff like that. They may not be comfortable with that. Whereas that more intimate setting, over a sausage sizzle, we had a few weeks ago, months ago.
Yeah, months now.
We need to do one.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
Definitely.
But it's sort of like it's important.
Yeah.
And it builds the sense of both community and belonging, as well as, like, maybe they don't have a father figure like you have, but they have you.
Exactly.
And so therefore they can come and take that argument to you and ask for your little involvements or area here or surah there, etc.
Exactly.
Take it back.
It's not only you're building them like a defense system with all the information that these misconceptions that are out there, getting ahead of the curve, for example.
Yeah.
Before someone comes in to them with this misconception, you're like, look, by the way, this is what our religion teaches us. This is why we do things the way that we do.
Yeah.
This is our core principles of our faith. But also at the same time, as you mentioned, building that network of people that these are the trustworthy people. This is where you get your religion from. Because in this day and age, it's become so difficult. Because now there are people that dress a certain way and look a certain way, that their goal is to deviate the youth, to take them on a different path, the wrong path. And so if you don't give them the guidelines of these are our absolute principles, these are our core values that will not change and will never change. And through these values, you can decide whether this person is the person that I can take information from, listen to, or this guy goes against my core values that I've been taught and I've been raised and I've taken from a trustworthy source. And so this person I should not listen to. I should not take my information from.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And it's all about exposure and about timing and about availability. Like, building that in a community, particularly around young people, is extremely difficult because there's a lot of things pulling away at their time. A lot of social media stuff, events, places to be, people to see, as they say, right? And I think that's why we always harp on, it's so important for centers to have availability, open, lights on, and a welcoming environment, maybe something to eat, just some tea. or a coffee, whatever. I'm a coffee drinker,
Yeah.
or whatever, right? There's just something for them to
Yeah.
go to Friday night, Saturday night.
Exactly. Whenever
There
they
are-
have spare time, rather than going to the wrong place.
That's right.
If they know that there's a place that's open for them, even like as a gym or a youth center or a club, or
Yeah,
just like they have the Catholic club, we can have the Muslim club. Look, it's
Absolutely.
always open. There's food, there's a gym, there's activities you can do, so that when my son is a teenager and he's 15, 16, 17, he's got his license and he's going to go back to, look, I'm bored, I want to do things. You know that if he goes to that place, that he'll be safe. The people who will be around are people that, are good people, that they won't, lead him to the wrong path, because that's a very big thing.
Yeah.
People that they're around, the friends that they choose to hang out
Huge.
with, that's a massive influence,
Absolutely.
massive impact on the path that they will take, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's trying to please their friends, or, to feel like, they're included. That's going to have a massive impact. So if we had the place like that, it's very important. It's something that we're lacking, that we really need.
We're growing it. I think it's the other side of the equation is availability in the current centres.
Yeah.
We've got places.
Yeah.
It's not. I think Sayyid Hassan was saying the other day that we got close to 70 centres just in Sydney alone, or is it New South Wales? I think Sydney.
Yeah.
And so that we've got 70 places
Yeah.
we can open up on a Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Surely we can all do a barbecue or something simple, and I think that's really, really valuable. A sahara here. And I think that's like, because it builds that connection. It builds the time, because you got to spend the time.
But it's so much more than just a place.
Yeah.
You can have the place. Place is not hard. Like, it can be a park, public park, anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's the right people who know how to bring the youth together. People who are not really judgmental, because I remember sitting down with a few brothers when we were talking about this issue of youth attendance and not attending lectures and whatnot. And so I just said, look, my idea or my take on this is we start with 100% fun, 0% religion. And they were all shocked. They were looking at me like, oh, what? I was like, yes, 100% fun. We start. Our very beginning is 100% fun, 0% religion. Like, okay. I'm like, yep, they come to the center. There's games, there's food, there's, PlayStation, table tennis, whatever. No lecture. Like, all right. I was like, then as they get used to coming to this place, they like coming to this place. We get 90% fun, 10% religion. I'll sit down and give them a few issues or masail fiqhiyya, something that they run into. They'll have one or two.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, guys, now you can go and play. Which we did this, and it was very successful at one of the centers, and we had such a good turnout. And from a very young age, like we had like from 5 to 15. Wow. And you feel like they're all there. They're all literally sitting there waiting to go play, but they're also, you find that I was surprised, like they're all focused. They're asking very good questions. They were actually listening. And then as you move on, then like you incorporate more and more, and just them being there, you're there. If they have any questions to ask and whatnot, that's good enough. I feel like we need to adapt as people of, people, whether it's people running the Islamic centers or people who are delivering lectures, we need to adapt with the times, because that's what the opposite side are doing. They're trying to attract our youth through these things.
Yeah.
The fun, the exciting, the whatnot. We need to do the same. We need to change our ways. We can't just stick to the same old ways that we've been doing things and expect, because that's what happened. Like if you look at it from a graph point of view, you'll find that youth attendance is just going down and down and down. Now it's to almost zero in a lot of centers, where you walk in and you'll find it's just the elderly people are there. So we need to adapt. We need to change.
And we do value elderly people in the centers, everyone. It's not like...
They're more than welcome. But
they're very important.
What I always say is, look, I'm not worried about a 50 or a 60-year-old deviating from the path at that age.
That's right.
What I'm worried about is the 15-year-old, the 20-year-old.
Trying to make decisions.
Those people are, at the most risk. The highest risk are those ages, like 13, 14 to 21, 22. Yeah. That's when, all these things are coming at them at, 100 kilometers an hour. They're making all these decisions and it's getting harder. So we need to change. We need to devise methods and ways of...
Such as a podcast.
Exactly. A podcast or having, a barbecue, a get-together, in winter, how we have the fire pit and the barbecue and just chatting and talking, or even like sports, like soccer, whatever it is that they're into. we need to use that to get to them and bring them together, because you find that it's truly surprising. Well, it wasn't really surprising for me because I knew it would happen, but the first time that we started doing that, you see people that you haven't seen in years. They haven't come to the mosque. They haven't come to this center. All of a sudden, they're here. Look, there's a fun thing. He hears that everyone else is coming too, so they also want to feel involved and want to come. And that step that they took, for me, even if they're sitting outside the mosque, even if even if I'm delivering a lecture and there's youth standing outside talking the whole lecture, I'm happy, because just them being there in the mosque means that they're not somewhere else.
Yeah.
That they're not doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And now they're outside. Maybe, after a while they'll move in closer. Maybe they'll come inside and not listen. And then maybe they'll come inside and actually listen. Yeah. Because that's how it is. Like, you can't expect everyone to react the same way. And
step at a time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And the other component to that is arming them. And I think you've mentioned that a couple of times with your conversation around arming the individuals and understanding that certain things in Islam are a shield.
Yeah.
Being in a state of wudu is a shield.
Yeah.
Where you are allows you to shield yourself. Salah is a shield.
5 prayers at 5 different times.
Making the time for the salah is a shield. Siyam, is a shield. I think that's really, really important. I think, if you want to run through, like, if for me to pray, I have to be in a location where I can pray.
Yeah.
I have to be in a state where I can pray. I have to be conscious of the fact that my day needs to be scheduled in that regard, that would allow me to be there to do that and stuff like that. And I think, getting them into a habit, as you said, with over the second set of 7 years.
I always say this, like, if someone's not really good with their salah, just to try, look, make wudu, try to always be on wudu and pray the 5 prayers on time. Wake up in the Fajr. If you've started your day with salah and remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, and you pray, and then it comes to Dhuhr, it's the busiest time of the day, you're busy, there's so much things going on. Work, whether you have appointments you want to do, and if you prioritize your salah, and then you pray your Dhuhr and Asr, and then at night, you're tired, you're winding down, you pray Maghrib and Asha. This is literally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you these different stations throughout the day for you to remember Him, for you to avoid sin. And even if you were to commit minor sins, because we all commit minor sins, that from Fajr to Dhuhr, you have that station that's going to cleanse. And that's how Rasulullah describes it. He says to his companions, he says, how would you like if you had at your doorstep a river, and 5 times a day you would go and wash yourself in that river? What would you be? They said, oh, Rasulullah will be the cleanest of people. He says, that's the example of salah. SubhanAllah. 5 times a day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you this opportunity to go and wash yourselves away from your sins and to be clean and to purify yourselves and your souls. So it's truly one of the probably the most important thing in our lives is that if you do maintain your salah on time, because you've lost the true essence of it. If you come at the end of the day, at the end of the night, and you decide, look, I've missed all my prayers and I'm going to pray them, you've missed on what the purpose is throughout your day. Each one has a purpose.
Building up the fard and then moving on to the mustahab.
Exactly.
Building that knowledge base around what that looks like. It's an amazing thing. I think it's really valuable. Did you want to touch base on just a couple of points for use today? If I was a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and I'm facing a decision, halal haram decision, what sort of aspects of, what sort of, ideas or thoughts should I be using in my mind that are helping me make the right decision, both for me as an individual and religiously?
Yeah. I think, look, this will be different for different
Sorry
people.
to put you on the spot.
No, all good. But I think if you were to visualize this in, because, someone might come and say, look, I've got this problem. I've got this thing that I keep doing. I keep repeating this sin. I know it's a sin.
Ghiba.
And so, ghiba, or, looking at haram things or committing haram acts or whatnot, and I have a problem and I can't stop. And then if you were to ask this person, okay, let's say there was a 5-year-old child there looking at you, would you still do this haram thing? No, of course not. I'm not going to do this. okay, let's say the 5-year-old is not there, but you're in a room, you're about to do the sin, and you realize, look, there's cameras all over the place, and there are people watching you. Would you do it? And there are people behind those cameras, and they can record you, and they're going to expose you. And like, no, I can't do that. So then you should understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching. So when you're about to make that decision of, do I do this haram thing or not, visualizing this sin, visualizing yourself doing that sin, and the regret that you would feel after it, because that will always come. No one can deny that. They know it because it's wrong. That's why you're questioning it, whether it's halal or haram. And so once you visualize it and you visualize how you would feel after, and you realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always with you and is always watching you, then that will make it easier for you to avoid that sin. But that doesn't guarantee that you won't avoid this sin, because again, human beings, we have our hawa, we have our nafs, we have shaitan, we have all these forces working against us. But at the end of the day, that is something that can help us to avoid.
And how does gratitude fall into that? So, for example, I know a lot of the times early on in my life, for me, it was around, if I'm doing this thing, right, this ghiba, for example, or an arrogant act, or thinking to myself that I'm like the king of the mountain, I'm the best, I can lift the heaviest weights in the gym, whatever, right? And I think to myself, I always use gratitude, like what humble thought am I thinking right now? Is it a thought that is going to be a force for good, or is it a force for evil? Am I being ungrateful to Allah for all the good He's given me? So I'm in the car, and I'm cruising at 150 down the 80. Happened recently. Like, that's an ungrateful act. I'm showing ingratitude to Allah for the blessing that He's given me in doing that, and of course there's going to be repercussions.
I think there's a saying that they say, look, you don't know what you have until it's gone. I think that actually applies here, because the only way you can have gratitude is when you look at those who are beneath you. To never look at those who are above you. But for example, you have that car and you're driving, for example, and you get pulled over and you get fined, or your child is sick, or whatever it is that you're facing, or you feel great about yourself. You feel like, look, I'm happy, I've got all these things. Whenever you sit and you look at those who are beneath you, and trust me, there are so much people who are worse off than us, especially us living here. It's very easy for us to find people who are beneath us. I think that is what humbles us. That is what shows us, look, you should be grateful for what you have. Yes, what you're going through is difficult. Yes, what you're going through is hard. But there are people that have it 10 times harder. I know it sounds a bit cliche and people use it a lot, but it's true. It's true. It's absolutely true. It's whatever you're going through in life, there's someone that has it worse off. Whatever it is, no matter how bad you think it is, there's someone somewhere in the world that has it a lot worse than you. You've lost one thing, they've lost everything. You don't have this thing. You've suffered this calamity. You've suffered this loss. You feel like you've lost your job, but there's someone who's lost a loved one, or you've lost this position, or but someone is sick and is lost. You have the ability to walk. You have the ability to talk. Like remembering the blessings that Allah is giving.
You can rebuild. Because others can't.
Exactly, because I think when we're sick sometimes, or during COVID, when you lose your taste, you realize, like, literally, you never even thought of this as a blessing. Like, it's just normal. Like, everyone tastes. Or if you lose your hearing for some reason, which I recently experienced infection. These are things that we take for granted. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
Allah wants to teach us that.
Allah la tahsuha. Like, you won't even be able to count or quantify the blessings of Allah. That's how much they are. And unfortunately, as human beings, we don't realize them until we lose them for a bit, temporarily or not. We realize, look, we have so much blessings. We are truly blessed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much. And that gives us that sense of gratitude, being thankful. And in that same way, when you have that sense of gratitude, you will be humble, and you won't have that sense of arrogance.
And I think the other side of the equation is we don't thank Allah enough for. If something good was to happen to you, you wake up one morning, there's a pile of gold in front of you. Oh, alhamdulillah. But if you wake up in the morning and you don't have any problems, you should say alhamdulillah.
Yeah, exactly.
Be grateful for
even when you have a loss, We are taught by our imams to say always Alhamdulillah, and that's how Rasulullah was. Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Alhamdulillah. We thank Allah for everything, for every state that we're in. A good state, in a bad state, in a happy state, in a sad state, because the reality of the matter is we don't know what is in this thing that we've suffered. It might be a good thing for us. We might consider it a good thing, but in the eyes of Allah, it's a bad thing. This is something that's going to cause us grief, or is going to cause us hardship, or is going to cause us to commit sins that we will pay for on the Day of Judgment. Or in our eyes, this is absolutely the worst thing that could ever happen to us. But in the eyes of Allah, this is a blessing for us. That He's chosen to give us this as a blessing. So that's why we have to say Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal, because we truly do not know.
And we got to take ourselves through that mentally. Because and I know that hit is going to happen. We're going to take a hit one day. Are we prepared? Are we prepared mentally to be grateful?
Exactly.
Is that something we are prepared for? And are we prepared for success? How many people do we know where they've suddenly got all of their dreams? I know people that have got all of their dreams come true suddenly, right? And all of the problems that they were experiencing gone away. But they were stressed about, they've got immense wealth. The wealth is stressing. What do I do with the money? I've got, where do I invest it? And they're even more stressed with the blessing
100%.
than they were before.
Yeah. There was a study in the US where they just took a group of CEOs and really wealthy men. And they found that the rates of depression and anxiety were 4 times higher than the actual population, the general population.
Wow.
And then they looked at their kids and they found that the rates of drug use and suicide and depression were also much higher. So, and that's because they don't have that qana'ah. They're never content. You have $1 million, they're looking. By the way, they also had a survey for them and they're like, oh, what is your goal? And each one of them, or like the vast majority of them was, I want to double or triple or quadruple my wealth. I've got $1 million. My goal is 4 million. I've got, 4 million. I want this much. So, and that's why they're always in that stress. They're always depressed. They're always chasing that. They don't have that contentment, which Islam teaches us to be content with what you have, to have the qana'ah, which is truly a treasure that does not ever run out, according to Imam Ali alayhi salam. And I think in the same sense, in the same way, it's not something that just comes out of the blue. Like this is, as you said, something that you need to train. Just like a special forces or, a soldier in the special forces, they go through some extreme training, like, going without food and going underwater for certain times and literally very extreme. You look at it and you're like, this is too extreme.
Conditioning themselves.
What for? They're preparing for the absolute worst case scenario that they'll be ready. It's the same thing with us. Us being patient over small things. Me experiencing a small discomfort. Getting fined. Losing a bit of money here. Getting sick. If I'm patient with these small things, something a bit bigger, for example, I'm having trouble with my partner, with my spouse, my children are being very difficult and I'm being patient with them. All of this is training ourselves. We're disciplining ourselves to be patient so that when a big calamity comes, if you were to suffer something very big, a loss or a calamity or something very big, that you have prepared yourself mentally, spiritually, physically to be able to be patient, because that's the toughest time. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَشِّرَ الصَّابِرِينَ, give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Those who, when they suffer a calamity, they suffer something very big, they're able to be patient and say, they ground themselves basically and they say, look, to Allah we belong and to Allah we should return. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. And Allah says, those people have salawat, prayers from Allah onto them and all these blessings. So it's not just that, look, I go through my life, I haven't been patient about, anything. I haven't taught myself to be patient. I haven't trained myself. And then all of a sudden, now I'm facing this very big thing. That's why people lose themselves.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the background. They don't have that. They haven't built the base to be able to deal with these things. And this is very important that for us to teach ourselves and also our children. You have, I think, Imam Sadiq that recommends that we every so often just sleep on the floor no cover, like no mattress and
Get
no
used to
cover.
the discomfort.
Yeah, get used to the discomfort. Like that's literally conditioning yourselves, which
Yeah.
is what they do in
Yeah.
military and others.
It's very important, and to be aware of that and understanding that, you know, you're not just born. Well, I think I'm not sure of the religious saying. I know there's a. How many times I've been told this over the years? I still haven't memorized it. But you know, like you're born and you got to expect to be tested. Um,
أحسب
I think-
الناس أن يتركوا
there you
أن
go.
يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون.
So,
The people expect that they will say, "Look, we believe," and they won't be tested. There's many other ayat, many
so
other
Allah
verses.
is telling us
Yeah,
straight out,
yeah. Look,
dude, you're born. I've given you this,
Yeah.
but you're going to be tested
Yeah.
with it.
And look, a lot of people will say this. That look, the dunya, this world deceives us and it tricks us. And I actually don't believe in that because I don't think the dunya deceives us.
No,
Because the
it's-
dunya is very clear. Like you literally, it's like this man, a man of God. I'm not sure whether he was a prophet or not, but the angel of death came to him, and you know he says, "Look, you're here already. You know, you didn't give me any signs. You didn't give me any warnings. Just all out of the blue." And so he replied to him and he says, "Didn't you see that person die from your family? Didn't you see that person die? Didn't you see this? Didn't you see all these things around you? The first gray hair that you have, all of these things are signs from Allah." So the dunya is not really deceiving us. The dunya is saying, "Look, I'm only here. You're only here for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You see people dying in front of your very eyes. You know, they're going down into their graves. What did they take with them? Nothing. You know, whether they were rich or famous or powerful, they didn't take anything with them. The only thing that they'll take with them is their a'mal and their good deeds. Yet we deceive ourselves. The dunya is not deceiving us. The dunya is very frank. It's very obvious. But we deceive ourselves. Shaitan, when we allow shaitan to deceive us, and you know, that's we fall into this trap of chasing after this dunya. Whereas the dunya is very clear.
And that's the essence around, you know, sin and making the wrong decision at the wrong time, because you got to prepare yourself that at that moment when you hit that crossroad, you're going to be smashed with temptation from everything: social media, shaitan, waswasa, you know, your own nafs, all of this stuff. You're going to get smashed by this, and if you're not prepared for it in this world, when it's time to go to the next world, you're going to be tested at that point as well.
Yeah.
And that's the big one, because that's a eternal failure.
Yeah. And I think after suffering, you know, the loss that I did, I delved into death as a topic to study in barzakh and, you know, that intermediary world. And then, you know, we always think about, you know, death, we're going to die, we're going to our graves, and there'll be the day of judgment. If we've done good, we're going to heaven. If we've done bad, we're going to hell.
Yeah.
What about barzakh? No one knows how long it's going to be. It could be 1 million years. It could be 10 million years. It could be 100 million years where you're just waiting for judgment. Yet if you have lived your life, you know, in a righteous way, you've followed the teachings of our religion, you haven't hurt others, you haven't harmed others, you've done, you know, everything that's required of you, you can be living that period, you know, with a body that's similar to the body that you have in this world, but it's just invisible, it's clear. People visit each other in that world. You can literally see the imams in Wadi Salam when you go to Wadi Salam. So, and you can see, you literally see your house of Jannah. You can smell it from your grave. Literally, like even just thinking about barzakh, like that's even, I feel like it could be just as impactful as thinking about the hereafter, because in that time you could be paying. You can either be in that, you know, beautiful place that I've just described, or you could be paying for your sins. Or it could be a pit of hell. You know, it's either a garden of paradise or a pit of hell. You could be paying for all the negative things that you've done and the bad things that you've done. But I think, look, remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, is the most forgiving, but at the same time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has justice and has adala. And I remember having this debate once with a Christian about, you know, their concept of, you know, if you believe in Jesus Christ, that's it. All your sins are absolved and you're in heaven. So, you know, I brought up some figures in history, you know, like Hitler and whatnot, and Saddam Hussein and all these tyrants. So I said, you know, look, they kill millions of people and they believe in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, and all their sins are gone. Before I got to that, I asked him if he believed God was just, and he said yes. And I said, so
where's the justice?
Where's the justice in that?
Yeah.
And you know, he had no answer, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. He's the most forgiving, the most beneficent. He will forgive your transgressions with him. You've missed your salah, you've done this, all these sins. He may forgive them because he's the most forgiving. But when you've transgressed against others, against other believers, you've taken the haqq, the right of someone else, you've backbited, you've talked behind their back, you've taken money from them that you shouldn't have, you've hurt them with a word, you've hurt them, physically, in any other way. These are the rights of the people that you'll be paying for. As a believer, as a muwali, as a follower of Ahlul Bayt, perhaps you won't enter into hellfire, but you will pay. You have to pay for these things, and so that's where barzakh comes in. That could be the time or period where you do pay for these sins, and so these are thoughts that obviously people will not always have, not always think, and we shouldn't, because you shouldn't always be thinking about death and whatnot. You should be focusing on this life, working in this life as if you're going to live forever, according to Imam Ali, and work for your hereafter as if you're going to die tomorrow. So that's the balance. That's the balance that that's the balance that we.
And I think we touched on that with Sayyid Fadl the other week as well, with regards to balancing as a whole human being. Both within the household, in the centers, and as a whole human being. And I think it's time and time again we come back to that topic of balance and balancing the human being, and really creating something that is taking into account all of the aspects of the human being. Don't forget the thought about death. It's probably sad, probably a little bit depressing, but it's important to research it. It's just as valid as understanding why we pray, as understanding why we fast. And it's a solid it prepares you.
I think there's an issue where there's certain people that speak who paint this very dark picture about death, and this is what's going to happen, punishment, and the steps, and the angels that will come and question you, and all the difficulties. When in actual fact, when you read the narrations and the ahadith of what truly happens to a muwali, a believer, a follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen when he dies, to the point where a muwali is given the option of going back to life. Do you want to go back to life, or do you want to? But he's seeing Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he's seeing the Holy Prophet, and he's seeing the Imams and Fatima al-Zahra. They're all there welcoming him. So he chooses to actually his soul to be taken. To that point, the angel of death is gentle with the muwali, and how he treats them is completely different. So that's I feel like the vision and the image that we should be preaching and portraying, rather than just the image of constantly death is fear, and death, because death is the absolute that there is no other absolute like it. There is no denying it. There is no check that this is something that's going to happen. Everyone. So we need to portray it in how we've been taught through our narrations, through our hadith, that yes, it can be bad, but this is what we have to expect. And so when you view death from that point of view, you find that that's where the Urafa and those truly great scholars, that they actually view death as something that they look forward to. You see the martyrs that are martyred on the right path, they're asked, what are you looking for? You feel like, that's their dream. Or what is your dream? My dream is to die for the sake of Allah. Like, their understanding of death, the way they view death, is completely different to how we view death. Clearly, like, we might look at them like, these people are different. Or what are they thinking? Is this possible? Like, are they actually being sincere? But you find that they are sincere. Because they have given their lives on this path, and many, many of them. That's because, they can see a different picture than us.
And I think, it's just as much effort and around preparing yourself for death. And as you said, live like you're going to live forever, and like you're going to die tomorrow. So it's kind of like,
exactly,
you got to have both sides of the equation.
It's like there's Muslims at the beginning of Islam. Some of them were living like monks, because they heard from Rasulullah, look, this life is temporary. They knew that, but look, this is what you have to expect. These are all the rewards from Allah. So some of them lived like monks. They left their wives, they left their families, and Rasulullah was very angry with them. Like, look, this is not what I came with. I did not come with Ruhbani. I did not come with you to be monks. I came with the Al-Hanifiyya. He says, I came with, you pray, you fast, you spend time with your family, you work. This is the beauty about Islam. It's such a balanced religion. It's not just, one thing. It's not just being, locking yourself up and just, in worship, or just, completely letting yourself go and ignoring all these things. It's the perfect balance.
Yeah. And it's the physical application of it as well.
Exactly.
It's not just theory.
Yeah.
We're not here to, when you die, you're not given your book of intentions or your book of feelings.
Yeah.
It's actions.
Exactly.
It's what you do, in reality. And in some cases, an amal can be an intention.
Oh, look, with the good, that's from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. The good, even if you just had the intention, yes, you'll see.
Yeah.
But if you intend to do something bad, you won't see it. There's a narration where a man is after he dies, and then Allah Subhanahu wa Taala shows him, these are your rewards for building, 50 mosques. And he says, Allah, I haven't built a single mosque. Like, I don't even have the money. I don't have it. He said, yes, but you were walking in this area and you said to yourself, look, if I had some money, I would build a mosque. I wish I had money, I would do it. So all of those times that you wished that you would build a mosque, now you're getting them as rewards on the Day of Judgment. So that's from the mercy and the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Is all we need is just have positive thoughts. That's the power of positive thinking. And
it's an amazing how when you make that intention, I'm going to go Hajj. How many times we say, I'm going to go Hajj, I'm going to go Hajj. But the year you actually make the intention, it's like it's always meant to be. Like this podcast. How long have we spoke about doing projects, etc. Suddenly, bang, here we are, and it was the easiest thing in the world because there's a sincerity in the intention.
It's like the ziyarah from Imam Hussein to, like they say, the Imam is the one who invites you. So many times we say, oh, we want to go to ziyarah, we want to go, and then sometimes you just get this feeling. It's like, I have to. Like, it's not just I want to, I plan to, I have to book my tickets. That's when look, you've truly received an invitation from them.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing. And I think, there are so many aspects of everyday life around, implementing Islam that makes you stronger, both in faith, physically, and gives you the ability to essentially shield you from, or haram, and making that decision easier. Even food.
Yeah.
Where you are, and if your intention is to have halal food, you need to be in a location where halal food is available, and then suddenly you're making decisions based off that. And it's incredibly powerful.
It's not easy. It's a difficult thing, but it gets easier with time.
Well, it's easier in Australia these days because I spent half my life pretending I was vegetarian.
Or vegan, pescatarian.
Honestly, every time you go out with friends and stuff like this, it's you'd always go with the vegetarian option, the veggie burger.
I think always just exercising precaution. Like, if you are in doubt, just don't do it.
That's right. That's right. That's a good lesson there. Look, brother Wesam, I really appreciate your time, and I know you've got a very busy schedule, and
thank you for having
we've taken a lot of time from your day, and we really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Inshallah, we'll have you back soon. Definitely, inshallah. I think there's a lot of. We've only touched the tip of the iceberg, and inshallah, I
wish you all the best in this endeavor.
Inshallah, thank you very much, brother Wesam. And
it's a great initiative.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to the brothers. There's a few brothers overseas in London. Thank you, brothers. It was a V, brothers. For watching when this does come out eventually, and we will have some sponsorship and support links in the description once the video goes out. So if you do feel like it's quality content and you're enjoying our conversations, feel free to help and support where you can. There'll be information in the descriptions. So thank you, brother Wesam. Thank you. For the team, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.